What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to give you guys 3 very useful tips to help you guys maximize your results when the gyms do reopen. And if you do live in an area where maybe your gym is open now, then the best part about this video is you can start implementing these directly into your workout starting today. The number one mistake you can make is try to get back all that lost time as quickly as possible. I think taking a planned out approach is definitely what you want to do, and that's why I want to give you guys these 3 tips. But if you do try to rush your progress and you try to jump back into it too quickly and too hard, I think what's going to happen is you're going to run the risk of getting injured. And if you do, obviously that's going to be more time away from the gym when you just kind of got back, meaning another setback, which you definitely don't want. And another thing that I think is very important to mention is that if you do try to do too much in the first week, you're definitely going to be overtraining and you're going to run the risk of kind of not recovering properly. So I think you need to be very methodical with your training. So that's why I think these tips are going to be extremely useful. So if you guys are ready, then let's just jump into tip number 1. So starting off with my first tip, and that's actually to set new goals or to readjust your current goals. Maybe you had some time to reflect during this time away from the gym. Maybe you kind of want to take a different direction with your training. So maybe you were kind of doing maybe more bodybuilding. Now you kind of want to start getting into powerlifting. I think that you really need to establish your goals, whether or not they be new or old. And in terms of readjusting your current goals, as cliche as it sounds, I think that writing down your goals is extremely important because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to have that vision for yourself of where you want to be and what your physique, how you want to progress your physique. So I think that having that end goal in mind is really going to help kind of create that roadmap and really allow you to establish your goals and figure out what's important to you. So in terms of my recommendation, I highly recommend you guys write down your goals. So before you even step foot into the gym and you return back, decide on kind of what you want to improve on. If you're focusing more on bodybuilding, maybe it's a specific body part that you want to improve on, and really craft a plan or create a goal to actually do that. And by writing it down, you're going to create more accountability on your part. So like I said, what I would do is I would write it down and I would break your goals down into like a week goal, a month goal, a 3-month goal, a 6-month goal, and also a year goal. And instead of trying to think about everything you want to accomplish, just pick one thing that you want to improve on and write that down and really focus on that. Another thing that I find that helps me really stick to my goals is kind of I know it's going to kind of sound silly, but if you write it down on a piece of paper and you post it somewhere, or you put a piece of tape on it and stick it on your wall in your bathroom or your bedroom or somewhere where you pretty much spend a lot of your time, I think you're going to be constantly reminded about that. And the days that you're kind of at the first week when you go back, you're going to be excited because the gyms are open. But I know that there's always going to come days where you're not willing to train, or you don't want to train, or you're just feeling kind of unmotivated. So I think that if you establish those goals right from the start and you write them down and you kind of put them into the areas, you post them on your walls, just tape it on a piece of paper and put it on your wall, I think you're going to be constantly reminded of that, and you'll kind of be more driven to kind of achieve that. So I think that's very important. And like I said, as cliche as it sounds, writing down your goals, it works for some people and it doesn't work for others. But I think that goal setting, no matter what area you do in life, whether or not it's fitness or whether or not it's in your career, or maybe you want to learn something new, I think setting goals is extremely important, and being able to separate long-term and short-term goals is important. So I highly encourage you guys to definitely set some new goals and also maybe readjust your current ones. So tip number 2 is actually focus on progressing in your heavy compound movements or trying to get stronger. I think this is very important in terms of just any aspect of training, no matter if you're doing bodybuilding or if you're doing powerlifting, because we do all know that progressive overload is definitely the number one driver of muscle hypertrophy. So in order to kind of make your muscles adapt and want to grow, you're going to have to constantly challenge them. So by doing so, you have a couple different options. With progressive overload, you can always try to increase the volume, you can try to increase the reps, increase the sets, but what I would kind of do is I would focus on increasing the weight and really focus on, like I said, your main compounds being your bench, your overhead press, your squat, your deadlift, maybe some heavy rows, barbell rows. I think that if you focus on strength progression, the reason being is because a lot of people with their home training had access to resistance bands, maybe some dumbbells, and they weren't really training heavy. So I think that you kind of got enough of that with your home training. You got more higher rep ranges, maybe 15, 20, maybe even 20 reps if you're doing resistance band work. And I think that if you really kind of take your training to take a different direction with your training and kind of adjust it to kind of go more in the 6, the 8 rep range and go a little bit heavier, I think it's going to be exactly what your body needs and the stimulus that it needs. And like I mentioned before, if you don't give your muscles a reason to grow, then they definitely won't. So you need to continue challenging challenging yourself and pick the right exercises. And I think that going back to what I said with the main compounds, I think what you should do is really focus on prioritizing those, make those the core of your training, and really write down your numbers. Like I said before, going back to what I mentioned with writing down your goals, it's the same thing with tracking your workouts. I know most people, they'll track it for a week or two and then they'll kind of get bored of it or sick of it and they just kind of forget about it and stop tracking. Maybe you went in, you're like, I don't remember what I did on bench press last week, or I don't remember what I did in terms of another exercise. I don't think you have to track everything to a T. Like maybe if you're doing some isolation work, I don't think it's as important to track that stuff, but in terms of just your main compounds and the lifts that you're looking to progress on, I think it's extremely important. So if you're old school like me, maybe you can use a pen and paper, but if you'd rather kind of track it in your phone, you can do that as well. At the end of the day, the most important thing is to really get back that lost strength. And that's another thing I want to mention, is that you have to be willing to accept the fact that you did lose some strength, because we aren't training with heavy weights. I'm pretty sure everybody's excited to kind of pick up the barbell again and get back to doing the deadlifts or the rack pulls or whatever you were doing in terms of your compound exercises. I think everybody's excited for that, but I think the number one thing is that people are going to rush into it too quickly, and you're definitely going to set yourself up for injury, and you're not going to progress the way that you want to. So I would kind of forget about those old numbers. Maybe you worked up maybe a couple weeks before the gym closed. Let's say you were deadlifting 405 pounds. Maybe when you go back to the gym, you're not near that. So what I would do is I would forget about the numbers that you kind of previously established before the gym's closed, and just forget about that and focus on working on your form and really build yourself back up, because you have to understand that you are going to be losing some strength if you didn't train those movements, because strength is a very specific movement. It's an acquired skill. So once you go back to the gyms, it will come back very quickly, but I would take that time of kind of regaining your strength as a way to kind of improve your form. I know that's personally what I'm going to do with the bench press, and I'm going to also start getting back into deadlifting as well. But yeah, that's another thing that I would mention, is just really focus on improving the form, forget about your old numbers, and focus on getting stronger in those lifts. And I guarantee that those old numbers that you had in your main compound lifts, you'll be able to surpass much better and much safely. And the third and final tip is nutrition related. I think a lot of people definitely slipped up on their nutrition during this whole quarantine and self-isolation. And I think it has a lot to do with people not getting effective workouts in. Personally, that's what happened to me, is I just kind of thought that the training I was getting in wasn't effective. And it kind of allowed me a little bit more slip ups on my diet. It made me not want to follow my nutrition. And I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat as well. So I highly encourage everybody to make nutrition a priority. Really focus on getting your calories in and calories out. If you are bulking or cutting, really commit to one. I think a lot of people are really on the fence whether or not they're bulking and they're cutting. They're kind of back and forth. I think you really need to pick one and go after it and really focus on it. So obviously that's going to change your calories, but I think that in terms of getting back to the gym and really getting the results that you want, you need to make sure you're making smart nutritional choices. And I think the number one thing that most people need to do is definitely meal prep. I know that a lot of people don't like eating reheated food, and I'm in the same boat, but honestly my fitness goals are more important to me to kind of than what I'm eating, I guess is what you'd say. So you kind of have to come to the realization that if you really want to achieve your fitness goals bad enough, then it might require you to meal prep, especially if you do live a busy schedule. But I also do like to mention that you don't have to necessarily meal prep for 7 days. I think meal prepping for 2 or 3 days is even sufficient, because you do have the meals when you need them and you're less likely to make bad nutritional choices. Personally, for me, that's kind of how I got my nutrition back on track, as I started meal prepping again. And when the gyms reopen in my area, I am going to continue that, because I've been extremely consistent with my nutrition, and I credit that once again to meal prepping. Obviously, anytime that you reheat your food, it's never going to taste fresh again. It's definitely, I can definitely understand why people don't like meal prepping and people can't stick with it. But like I mentioned before, if you want your fitness goals bad enough, then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you're eating, as long as you're kind of getting your nutritional goals in and you're doing it consistently. And then you'll kind of find ways to kind of cook your food differently and add spices and different variations to make it taste awesome. I'm not saying that you can't cook delicious food. I'm just saying that you kind of have to get used to kind of eating the staples and really kind of sticking to that and being consistent. So I highly encourage everybody to start meal prepping when the gyms reopen, and I guarantee your consistency will improve, and get back to tracking macros and really trying to hit those calories, hit your protein, hit your carbs, because you need to do that consistently over time to know how your body's responding. I think a lot of people do it for a week or two and they just kind of don't see the purpose of it, and they just kind of get misled by the numbers. I think just don't give up on it too quickly, and really keep consistently with your tracking, and just make sure that you're really kind of adjusting accordingly. I think another thing that's important to note is with your nutrition is give your body some time to adjust to the calories. I think people kind of adjust them too quickly. Really focus on setting a nutritional goal and sticking there for maybe 2 to 3 weeks before kind of giving up on that, and then determine whether or not you should add or cut calories. But in terms of bulking, I don't think you should use that as an excuse to kind of eat what you want. And I think that even if you are bulking, a lot of people may stop meal prepping for bulking. But I think that even getting those quality calories in and having, when you're eating more meals versus when you're cutting, I think it makes even more sense to meal prep. So no matter what you're doing, bulking or cutting, I think meal prep makes sense. And I highly encourage everybody to get back on their nutrition and stick to their nutrition goals and be committed to getting the results that they want. Train hard and eat clean, and I guarantee you'll see a lot more progress. All right, guys, so there you have it. Those are my 3 tips for really maximizing your results when the gyms do reopen. I don't think any single one of them is a standalone one. I think you need to really apply all 3 in order to kind of get to where you want to be. You have to be able to set goals. You have to know what you're training for. I think that the people that train for a purpose are obviously going to be much more driven, and I think everybody should have a goal. I think it teaches you a lot just about life when you kind of when you work hard for something and you achieve it. I think that there's no better feeling than kind of working for that. So I highly encourage, like I said, just to reiterate, set your goals, really focus on progressively overload, and really kind of get stronger on your main lifts, and then also get your nutrition back on check. And I guarantee if you guys apply all 3 of these tips, you guys are going to see the results that you want. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because I do put out a lot of great videos, a lot of great content, and I do have a lot of great stuff planned in the works, and I'm super excited to share with you guys. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also turn on the bell notifications. I want to make sure you guys get notified every time I drop a new video. And for those who are new to my channel, I do release videos 3 times a week. So you can expect uploads every Sunday, every Wednesday, and every Friday. So be sure to turn on those bell notifications, and also give the video a like. I do appreciate all the support, and the feedback definitely goes a long way. And I'll see everybody in the next one. All right, peace out.